All right, grown-ups, it's just our time. I love the babies, but to help you, I gotta speak my mind. This segment's here to help you grow with book reviews, lessons, and things you'll be glad to know. If your little one's restless or looking to play, send them to my other playlist. The read-alouds there will brighten their day. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Teacher Lady Show. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Teacher Lady Speaks. I'm Miss Erica, the Teacher Lady, your fairy godparent when it comes to sharing joyful stories and growing young minds. Now, every single week on the Teacher Lady Show, we have a new topic. And this week's topic is about consent, making sure that people are respecting your boundaries and making sure that children feel comfortable with the interactions happening with their bodies, okay? And of course, we are using picture books to support us in learning about this topic. Now, this week, our featured book is Yes Means Yes. On Monday, we had an interactive read aloud on the Teacher Lady Reads playlist. On Wednesday, we had a behind the book review. And now today is Friday, hey, and we are wrapping it all up with this episode of The Teacher Lady Speaks. You can think of this segment of the show like a crash course or a professional development on that topic. I use my experience as a well-seasoned educator to help enhance your experience raising little ones, okay? This is where I give you resources, best practices, tips, insights, and so much more. It's my way of trying to help you so that you can help them. All right, I think that's enough for now. You ready? Let's grow. Defining the topic for a child. Getting children to understand consent means teaching them that their feelings and their decisions are okay. They're justified in their actions most of the time, okay? Especially when it comes to their body. And so often when it comes to consent, we don't realize how quickly we force consent. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, we're leaving, go give your grandmother a hug and kiss goodbye. Or you see JoJo is trying to give you a high five, go ahead and high five them. It is this way to push, right? So that socially we're accepted and so that everybody feels more comfortable. But the important thing here is whether or not your child feels comfortable. And so consent is the decision that you get to interact with another person in a way that feels comfortable for you when it comes to your body. And that's also body autonomy. The decisions around your body, who can be in your space, who can be around you, and deciding how your body is used is extremely important. Now, when it comes to children and actually defining the topic, this is what I would say. Do you remember how you told me when we were leaving grandma's house, you didn't really want to give a hug to Ricky because you were angry at him? And your child might say, yeah, like I don't want to hug him or what have you. And then you could say that is a form of consent. You deciding no when he came to hug you, that was consent. Because when you do hug, you're giving permission for your body to interact with somebody else's. And if you don't want to do that, if you don't feel up for it, then that is completely okay. So I will make sure that I use words and verbiage that child would understand. Is there a situation to where another child wanted to play with them and they didn't want to interact, or they didn't want to high five? They didn't want to go around them? Was there a situation to where maybe it had nothing to do with the other child? They weren't feeling well. All of these are examples and ways that your child has likely already given consent or permission or said no when it came to consent or permission around their body. And body autonomy is more like agency, having control and making those decisions when it comes to your body. And it's super important early that children understand that those choices are up to them, okay? We'll talk about it more in best practices in terms of forced interactions, but overall, the idea of your body interacting or touching someone else's, those decisions are made by the child themselves because that practice starts extremely early. Let's keep growing. Every single week here on the Teacher Lady Show, we compare 2 states and their curriculums to figure out what your child might be learning in school when it comes to that topic. So we compare the state of Texas to the state of California so that your child better understands what it is they should be learning in class, and so that you as a parent are more informed, okay? Now, as always, I say, just because a subject is introduced in the state curriculum does not mean your child is actually learning it. Why? Every child learns and receives information differently. So whether or not they're learning the lesson that's being taught depends on the educator and whether or not they're able to learn from that educator. Safety. If a child does not feel safe in the classroom, they're not likely to retain the information. Their personal, maybe hunger or sleep deprivation or whatever other emotional things might be going on with them, and so many other factors. So oftentimes, just because a syllabus says that the child knows the information does not mean that they actually know the information, which is why it is important for you to double down and to reiterate the things that you think are important, regardless of what's in the state curriculum. Now, let's start with the state of California. California Health Education Consent Standards for grades K through 3 are under the safety standards. So in kindergarten, children should be able to identify safe versus unsafe touches and behaviors, demonstrate ways to express needs, wants, and boundaries. By 2nd grade, children should recognize situations that require getting help from a trusted adult, identify ways to stay safe in dangerous or uncomfortable situations. And then in grades 4 through 6, students should be able to explain the importance of reporting unsafe or wanted touches, describe how to set boundaries that promote body safety and self-respect. And by 6th grade, students should demonstrate strategies for managing uncomfortable feelings. Underneath the California Education Code, 51900 through 51950, comprehensive and sexual health and HIV prevention education. Although full sexual health education begins in later grades, early elementary standards require personal safety, understanding boundaries, recognizing inappropriate behaviors. California strongly supports age-appropriate consent education and body autonomy from early childhood onward. Moving on to the state of Texas. So Texas embeds personal safety and boundaries into health education. For grades K through 2, those standards include identify safety rules, including safe and unsafe touches, explain how to respond when someone makes you feel uncomfortable, distinguish between inappropriate and appropriate touches, identify personal boundaries and how to communicate them, explain the importance of reporting unsafe situations to a trusted adult, describe personal boundaries and how to communicate them safely, explain what consent means and why it matters, okay? Now, underneath the Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 120, this promotes character traits directly connected to consent, respect, integrity, self-control, and responsibility. So both states do have a pretty robust expectation when it comes to what the child should understand, but neither state teaches the teacher how to teach the information. And that's where it falls short for me. If I tell a teacher, hey, I need you to teach children about their private parts or about their body and about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, and then I don't give any direction as to how, as an educator, if you don't know, you don't know. And that is where the problem is with so many of these state standards is you give the information and sometimes there's no curriculum to come along with it. So hopefully this episode will play as a resource to kind of help you build some of that curriculum out. Let's keep growing. Resources. The first resource we're going to talk about is Kids Health, Your Body is Yours. Kids Health offers kid-appropriate videos and articles that teach children about body boundaries and safe versus unsafe touches, okay? They also discuss how to talk to trusted adults. The language is simple, empowering, and grounded in self-respect. Families appreciate how it normalizes boundary settings in everyday situations. The next resource we're going to discuss is called amaze.org, Consent for Kids. There is also amaze.org Junior, which is a version of this for younger children. So Amaze uses short animated videos to teach concepts like saying no, asking for permission, and respecting others' boundaries. The videos are developmentally appropriate and use humor to lower the anxiety around difficult topics such as consent or body autonomy. It's a powerful way to open conversations without fear or shame. The next resource I am going to recommend is called Committee for Children. They have a hot chocolate talk kit. So this resource helps family practice language around personal safety, unwanted touches, and body autonomy. It includes scripts, role plays, and simple steps for building confidence in kids. Parents love it because it makes tough conversations easier and more natural. All right, the next resource I want you to look into when it comes to body safety and autonomy is going to be Darkness to Light, talking to kids about body safety. So Darkness to Light provides an evidence-based guide to help adults talk about consent, boundaries, and recognize unsafe behaviors. So the resource empowers families to build protective factors early. Their conversation frameworks are simple, clear, and trauma-informed. And this is also great for educators who want to introduce consent into the classroom. Now, the next resource we're going to discuss is called RAIN with 2 N's. RAIN, talking to kids about safety and sexual abuse prevention. So RAIN offers clear, trauma-informed guidance for teaching children how to identify safe and unsafe behaviors in age-appropriate ways. Their scripts help adults examine consent. Their scripts help adults explain consent and privacy without fear-based messaging, all right? So this resource is especially helpful when you want to balance safety with empowerment and confidence. The next resource we are going to talk about is called Love is Respect, which I have to say, shout out to the name. And this is healthy boundaries for kids and teens. Love is Respect provides interactive lessons and guides about boundaries, respect, and personal autonomy for older elementary and middle grade kids. So it teaches children how to identify uncomfortable situations, set verbal boundaries, and understand healthy friendships. Families appreciate how culturally responsive and inclusive the materials are. Now, the reason why I have so many resources on this topic is because it is an important one. When children do not understand that their body is their own, when they feel like they have to make somebody else feel comfortable, it really does alter so much about them, okay? So we are trying to avoid the trauma, avoid the aftermath of terrible situations by educating early before we even get there. So let me give you a few more resources that you can look into to help you help your child with this topic. So the next resource is called healthychildren.org, American Academy of Pediatrics, Teaching Body Safety. Healthychildren.org provides pediatrician-approved guidance on how to teach body safety in a calm, developmentally appropriate way. So their resources encourage open conversations about consent and boundaries and privacy, like the bathing suit rule, which that rule states that anything that is covered by your bathing suit is off limits. I'm actually not a fan of that rule because there's so many other parts of the body. But again, tweak this information as need be for your child. And overall, it is a website that lots of parents trust because the language is gentle and it's medically approved and supported by medical professionals. Let's keep growing. The next resource I'm going to share has a lot of principles. And so if you wanted to add posters or handouts in your classroom, this would be a good website for you to check out. And this is called the Mama Bear Effect. They're body safety posters and guides. So this resource offers printable posters, scripts, and parent guides that help kids understand body boundaries, consent, and knowing when to get help. The materials use simple visuals and memorable phrases like private parts are private and no secrets from a safe adult. It's a wonderful addition for families who want ongoing reinforcement in their home environment. And the last resource we are going to discuss today is called Kids Helpline. Again, if you are looking for more resources or support, please go on my website, scroll to the bottom, and sign up for the newsletter where I send all sorts of bonuses and goodies. Kids Helpline Consent and Respect Hub. So this interactive site teaches kids what it looks like to ask for permission, respect others' choices, and handle rejection or discomfort with maturity. The examples are child-friendly and show everyday scenarios like sharing toys, hugging friends, or borrowing items. It's especially great for visual learners who benefit from seeing concrete examples. Best practices. So there are so many best practices when it comes to consent, and we're going to discuss a few today. The first best practice is to make you a safe way to say no to. For you yourself as the parent, the caregiver, the guardian, the educator, or whatever, for it to be okay for that child to tell you no when it comes to their body. Not when it comes to cleaning their room. So often we mix this up. Not when it comes to something else around safety or a chore that they have or what have you. But when it comes to things that are optional in regards to their body. So what does this mean? Well, there are times where I leave out the house and I automatically say, come give me a hug or come give me a kiss. And if my daughter does not want to in that moment, she does not have to. Now, does it sadden me as her mother? Of course, right? That is how we show affection and that is how we say goodbye in the home. But if as her parent, she can't say no to giving me a hug, how does that translate to so many other people in the world? It's the same concept around the parent being the first bully. If your parents mistreat you, it is so much easier for you to become a victim of mistreatment when it comes to other people. Okay? So we do not do forced consent. Not when it comes to hugs, not when it comes to kisses. You don't even have to give me a hand five if you don't want to. Now, when it comes to other things like a child getting their diaper changed is one of the questions that came up. Is it okay if your child doesn't want you to change their diaper? And yes, because you have to parent. And I think so often we get these things kind of intertwined and confused. If your child has a soiled pamper and you need to clean them and change them and they don't want to, you change them anyway. If it is time for your child to bathe and they don't want to take a bath, you change them anyway. This is a form of self-care and taking care of their health. And that is completely separate from forcing them to sit on Santa's lap, from forcing them to give a hug to grandpa goodbye, from forcing them to shake hands when they meet somebody. All of those things are separate from the things that are mandatory in order for you to take care of your body or your home. Okay, so consent is not this way to say, I get to do whatever I want. No, but it is a great protection when it comes to that child's body. The next best practice is we do not do secrets. So often, predators, people who are foul, people who their mind is just not where we would want them to be, rely on keeping secrets, and they'll test. They'll test boundaries. They'll see what a child is okay with, what a child is not okay with, if they would say something, if they wouldn't say something. And so it is very important that your child understand that we don't do secrets. And I know that I get the question, well, what about a surprise birthday party? If it's a surprise birthday party and that trusted adult told them that it was a surprise birthday party, that's completely different. But in general, you go to school and your friend tells you something and now your friend is not safe, you don't keep that secret. An adult tells you, hey, I want to tell you this, but don't tell your mom. Tell your mama right away. The list continues because secrets are a way for things to take place that did not have to take place. There's no need to hide. There's no need to hide the truth. If an adult told you something, I am your parent. And as your parent, I should be able to hear whatever it is that adult told you. The next best practice is for there to be a person or multiple people that child absolutely is able to trust. And what does this mean? If there are, let's say, a household of 4 of you. Let's say there is a uncle and a grandmother and the 2 parents. And your child has a very close relationship with their uncle. Appropriate relationship, of course. They have a very close relationship with their uncle. And that is their go-to person. Then you're going to make it to where that child feels comfortable sharing anything they're uncomfortable sharing. Whether it's gross, whether it's embarrassing, whatever it is, they can go to this person to share that truth. Children have to feel like they have somebody who is going to be on their side. They have to feel like they have somebody they're comfortable talking with or talking to. They need one adult. It doesn't have to be a bunch, okay? Your child can have 50 adults in their life. They can have teachers and after-school teachers and aunts and uncles and, sorority aunties and all sorts of stuff going on. They only need one to be able to constantly come to in points of pain or confusion or what have you. And that adult is never going to make them feel bad when they come with the truth. Now, what does that mean? That means, let's say the child comes and they say they have a crush on somebody in their school. What we're not going to do is embarrass them for that crush. Ooh, you got a crush on all of that teasing and making fun of a child will stop them in their tracks from talking to you. If you cannot be a soundboard for that kid, if you cannot allow them to express their feelings and their emotions without making fun of them, okay? If you're unable to do that, where that lands is now that child is not going to speak. So many children shut down because when they were not shut down, they got shut down. When they wanted to speak, they were told to shut up. When they had a question, you didn't have time. When they were confused, you called them stupid. So now there is an emergency and something is happening that should not be happening, but you have built a history of telling them that it's not okay for you to bring me whatever the problem is. So now that there is a problem, they're not coming to you. It's like the boy who cried wolf. You have to be extremely mindful as the caregiver that you are creating a space to where your child can talk. Because that is number one when it comes to consent and body autonomy is your child going to speak to you? There were inappropriate games that we played in our childhood, hide and go get it, and all sorts of inappropriate tag and this and that. And there were so many of us that were uncomfortable with these games being played. This is the harsh truth and reality. But there also weren't safe spaces where we can go and say, hey, this doesn't feel good. Or how do I get out of this game without being the loser or being made fun of? Or my friends think it's cool, but I don't really like it. What do I do when it comes to peer pressure? So being that I didn't have a bunch of adults, or honestly, even one that I felt comfortable just sharing everything with, there were a lot of things in my life that I experienced that could have been avoided. And the same is true for every single child. So my next best practice is to make sure that you create a space to where they are safe to talk to you, or there is somebody in their life. If you do play too much and you always cracking a joke, you're not it. If you're uncomfortable and have a lot of your own traumas that have not been dealt with, you're not it. Okay, I am going to take a detour, trigger warning about sexual abuse. The first time that I was abused, I was either 6 or 7 years old. I was very young. It was either 6 or 7. And I remember telling my grandmother, I said, hey, this person did this thing to me. And my grandmother's response was that it did not happen. She cleaned up. She went on to cooking as if nothing had taken place. When I sat down with my mother to tell her about some of the things that I had experienced in terms of abuse, my mother's response was a comparison of how many times she had been abused. So if these are the people in my life that I am supposed to go to when bad things happen, or most powerful and most importantly, before bad things happen, and they are telling me it didn't happen, and they are telling me they had it worse, then I'm screwed. As a child, I don't have a safe place. Children are not raised to trust authority. Most Black children are not raised to call the police in emergency situations. We go to family. So if we are going to family and that family is not available, that is when bad things happen. So you might not think it's a big deal that you're laughing at them because they got a crush on somebody, or because they're trying to understand whether or not they should be playing a game that's inappropriate. You might not think it's that big of a deal. You might want to brush them off because it's been a long day, but it is the difference between a child having to work through therapy and get help, maybe be hospitalized, and work through all of these things for the rest of their life because you wouldn't take a few minutes to hear about what it is that they had to say. So the next best practice, again, is you make time for that child. And if you can't, I need you to find somebody who can. A community therapist or counselor, a big brother, a big sister, an aunt, an uncle, somebody. There has to be one person consistently, which is key. Because I had people pop in and they popped out. There was a lot of popcorn in my life. There needs to be at least one person consistently that child can go to, even for basic questions. You got hair growing places where hair ain't grown before. Who do I talk to, right? Somebody asks me something that I don't understand the answer to. Who do I talk to? That list continues. Finally, I want to say that when it comes to body autonomy and consent, it truly is a practice. So teach your children to check in with their body. Nothing to do with hugging or touching somebody else. How do you feel right now? And this also bleeds over to our self-care week, so be sure to check that out. I feel exhausted. Okay, are you able to rest? And if you're not able to rest, when are you able to rest? So just getting your child used to their feelings. I was really sad today in art. Why? I was in art class and I felt really sad. Why? Why did you feel sad in art? I don't know. We were doing these pictures of puppies. Oh, and then I remember we had to put our dog Bert down last year. And it reminded me of that. So the practice of being aware of your emotions, your physical body. Do you feel energized? Do you feel exhausted? Do you feel drained? What is causing those emotions? And our emotions fluctuate so often on their own. Okay, it just is what it is when it comes to the human body. But there is something really powerful around understanding your body as much as possible. Like right now doing this show, I'm feeling sadness. And I'm feeling sadness because I've brought up so many situations from my own childhood. And here's the other thing to understand. The reason why I do these shows and the reason why these topics are so important is because the goal is to raise a child who gets to adulthood and then they don't have to heal. There's so much work in adulthood that has to be done to be okay as a result of a really messed up childhood. And so my goal with this whole TV show is to educate parents, because part of it is that parents really do not understand how to approach these things. How do we talk about grief? How do I teach my child to self-advocate? How do I stop my child from being bullied? These are hard questions that you can't just Google and get an answer. And so as I do these episodes and as I do these weekly topics, I'm thinking about what is it that I needed to know as a child that really could have helped me? And what is it that so many other children need to know to grow up as strong, as emotionally intelligent as possible, as safe as possible? That's what inspires this show. And so when it comes to body autonomy, understanding your body is so valuable. Checking in with yourself to understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling. Understanding and being able to connect things like, oh, I'm craving sugar because you had a hard day, or I just want to watch TV because you're completely overstimulated. The more that you understand about how you work and how your body works, the easier of a time you will have not navigating, the easier you or your child will have when it comes to navigating, well, life in general. Okay. So make time for your child. If you are a parent watching this who has also been in situations to where You did not have control over your body or something has happened. I'm sending you so much love in this moment. It is very hard sometimes supporting our children in things that we haven't fully combated ourselves or that we still struggle with ourselves. So I know so many of these topics hit a button because we're human, but I hope that you understand that these resources are here and this show is here to be able to help you through it because we don't have to repeat it with the next generation. Okay. When to seek help. If your child is to the point to where they are doing things that they're uncomfortable with, despite all of your teachings and all of your efforts, they're hugging people they're not comfortable with, they're giving things they're not comfortable giving, they're consistently kind of stepping out of the boundaries that they should have created to please other people, it's time for you to get help. If your child is saying things about who is bothering them inappropriately or talking to them inappropriately, it's time for you to get help. This section of the show is not really my recommendation as much as it is you knowing your child. If your child is starting to show behaviors of aggression, they're very quiet, or they're asking questions that you find to be very odd. Like I know my daughter came home maybe a year ago and she asked about the B word. And my husband gave a very technical definition of it's a female dog. But I thought, where are you getting this from? And she explained the situation. Then the situation was handled because your children so often will show you, if they can't articulate it, they will show you that something is going on. And so if you notice that, then it's time to get help. And it is okay to go get help for the things you have not learned. If you don't know it, you have to go find the resources and the information to be able to teach it, because you can't teach something you don't know. I have a great passion for helping families and for helping children. Yet and still, you will not catch an episode in Mandarin. Like I cannot teach you how to speak Mandarin. That will never be a topic on a Teacher Lady show. I don't know Mandarin. I don't know how to speak Mandarin. I don't know a lot about the history of speaking Mandarin. Okay. What countries speak Mandarin? Like I cannot tell you. And I can't tell you and I can't teach you because I don't know. So if you don't know, you go get support. Okay. Some great resources that I always mention: the church and the library are nonprofits. That means the government is saying, hey, you don't have to pay taxes because you are helping the community. So you can go there and you can find out about classes and workshops and other things that are going on in the area to be able to help you. Go to your school, your child's school, and see what resources they're offering, that guidance counselor or what have you. What is it that's there? Okay, all of that is important because a lot of these things we need some TLC as we're trying to give it to our babies. Okay, so at this point of the show, I'm actually going to give the mic over to my husband, who has a background in social work and who did child investigation. So he investigated child abuse, and I think that it would be really valuable for him to give some insight as to what it is that he has learned in his profession. And so, yeah, I'm going to give this over for a minute.
Hi, I'm Mr. the Teacher Lady. So one of the things I used to do is I was a child abuse investigator. And what I want to talk about, particularly as it pertains to sexual abuse, is you do not want to interrogate or ask your child too many questions if you suspect sexual abuse, because children are very easily corruptible in a way that will damage an eventual investigation in criminal proceedings. There's people who have gotten off for abusing children because some critical mistakes were made at the very beginning when even a caregiver or a parent was asking that child questions. You don't want to ask any leading questions. So once you have enough information where you truly, truly suspect sexual abuse of your child, you want to stop asking them questions. Then you're going to reach out to the authorities and ask for a forensic interview. A forensic interview is an interview with a professional. Sometimes that's an officer, sometimes that's a different specialist that works with police departments, trained specifically on how to interview children and interview them in such a way that what comes out of that interview is clean to go through criminal proceeding. So once you have a credible and honest suspicion of sexual abuse, go get that forensic interview. And there's no danger if at the end of it, the forensic interview, and they find out nothing happened. That's the best case scenario. But the worst case scenario is something did happen and you damage that ultimate investigation, and now a predator goes free and nobody gets justice. That's the worst thing in the world. It's the worst feeling in the world. So once you truly suspect it, you've asked enough questions like, hey, this happened to me, this person touched me, stop, go get a forensic interview. I was a child abuse investigator, and I was like a level 1 child abuse investigator. So there was investigators and people that work specifically with sex crimes and sexual abuse. But part of my job was to interview kids, and sometimes you would come across a kid disclosing sexual abuse. And at that point, I would have to shut down the interview myself so that they can go forward with a forensic interview.
Common questions. The first common question is, what if my child says no too often to hugs or kisses? And my answer is that is okay. If they never want to hug or kiss, that is okay. Children show affection in different ways. And for this answer, you have to remove your own desires, because as parents, we of course have ways in which we want to express and share affection with our child. So oftentimes this is a pain point, but the answer is that they do not have to hug or kiss. They need to hold hands when it comes to safety. But other than that, they don't need to do that either. When it comes to their body, they really do have to have as much control as possible. The next common question, should I talk to my child about sex? Absolutely. Now, in terms of age, that's going to depend on developmentally where they are. Typically, it's around puberty. I would say 11, 12 years old, you can introduce the conversation. But consent itself, just a basic of consent, covers things like consent when it comes to sex. Because if your child understands that I don't even have to hug nobody I don't want to hug, right there, you cut off so much more to come. So yes, you want to have that conversation when it is age appropriate, when it's developmentally appropriate with your child. But if you just lay the foundation in terms of body autonomy and consent, then they will already be light years ahead when it comes to the topic of sex. And just a quick detour. It is super important that your teenager understands, or your older child understands, that just because they said yes to something once does not mean that it is an automatic yes for the rest of time. You can say yes to something today and then say no to it tomorrow. You are allowed to change your mind, which is honestly just a general blanket best practice for any age group and for any person. If you flew to Alaska to take a job and it's too cold and you don't like it, then you are allowed to say, no, you don't want to do that job anymore. You want to move back to wherever it was you were. It is okay to change your mind. You want to teach that to your child as well. And the last common question is, how do I teach my child to respect other people when it comes to their body and consent? And what I would say is, a lot of these things, when we teach our child, that information tends to translate to other situations. And so as you're teaching your child that their body is their own, it's the same for other people's. I had a situation some years ago where we were all at the park, me and my daughter. We went to the park and there was a group of girls around my daughter's age at the time, and she wanted to play with them. And she came to me and she was really upset because they didn't want to play with her. And what I told her was, that's okay. They don't have to. They were playing some little ring around the rosy, whatever. And I said that they don't have to. If they don't want to play with you, they don't have to play with you. You cannot make somebody be your friend. You can't make them hold hands with you. That is okay. And here are your options. Because with kids especially, alternatives are important. Don't take away the TV if you're not going to put some markers in their hand, okay? You can play by yourself. You can play with mommy. I'll play with you. Or you can go find another friend to play with. And those were the options. What was not an option was to force your way into the circle. What was not an option was for you to keep badgering these girls so that they would include you, or to force interaction. We don't do that. Okay, which is another thing. In classrooms or at home or the forcing people to be friends and we all love each other, it does not work. You have to teach children that they get to pick their friends. They need to be respectful to everybody. They don't have to be friends. Oh no, you can't force me to be friends with nobody I don't want to be friends with. The same is true for children. Wow. I know that was a mouthful. I thank you for learning with me, for growing with me, for being part of this book loving community. And it's really so much more. There is such a joy that I get doing these episodes and being able to hopefully provide some sort of insight or support or help. I want to take this moment to let you know that I am also an author and illustrator with 9 very diverse books. And those books vary on topics, and those books help to encourage my book program called the Empathy Library. Now, the Empathy Library is a straightforward, pay it forward initiative where we get books to children in need on purpose. So that means that those books reflect that child, okay? Now, if you want to learn more about that, please go to the website and check it out. And for now, I am going to encourage you to enjoy the moment or go be a joy in the moment. Thank you for joining me on Consent Week. Bye.